taken a break from Hanratty's and ventured up into the Dartry Mountains. My hope was to show you the Gleniff Horseshoe, an incredible feature of the Sligo landscape, where you can stand right under the cliffs of these huge mountains and take in the sweeping views of the Donegal Bay. Unfortunately, the weather was not on my side this week, and a heavy mist came down, which rendered the adventure a bit of a lost cause. Nevertheless, even when the weather puts a dampener on things, it's hard still not to feel joy and vitality in this elemental landscape.
This is the mill site in Ballintralig. I'm sure you can hear the water rushing by. It's an absolutely beautiful spot, and I brought my cup of tea with me so that I could sit and have a bit of peace here by the river. Well, I'm up in the Gleniff Horseshoe, which is in the dramatic Dartry Mountains here on the Wild Atlantic Way, and boy is it dramatic here today. It's like Wuthering Heights. It's very wild and woolly. As you can see behind me, there is a big bank of mist on the mountain, but in fact it's actually slowly lifting. So I thought it was a lost cause here today and that we would have nothing to look at, but in fact the mist is slowly lifting up the mountain, and the mountain is gradually being revealed here behind me, and what an incredible sight it is. And far in the distance behind me is Mullaghmore, which is actually just down the coast from here, and the very famous Classieborn Castle, which belonged to Mountbatten. So we will hopefully get down to Mullaghmore soon to have a look. But first, let's watch the mist coming off the mountain. So I think we're going to have to keep our exploration of the Gleniff Horseshoe for another day, because it's just a little bit too misty here today to really get the benefit of the landscape. But what we're going to do instead is take a little trip down to Mullaghmore, which is this little peninsula down here, and it's a lovely little harbour village, and it has a beautiful beach and the backdrop of the mountains behind, although I'm not sure if we'll see the mountains now in their full glory because of this heavy mist. But let's go down and see what we can see from down at the coast. We're in the Donegal Bay, and this is Mullaghmore. Behind me you can see the beach, and in the distance there the mountains, so shrouded in mist, as we well know because that's where we just came from. This is a really beautiful spot. It's always been one of my favourite places, and we used to come here a lot when I was a child when we were holidaying with my granny's brother. Our favourite beach was actually a little cove that's just on the other side of the rocks, right at the end of the beach, and you can get to that little cove by driving around the back of the sand dunes, and there's a little laneway in, so we're going to go there in a few minutes. But first I want to show you the main beach, and let's go down and take a look. What an amazing spot this is, and so peaceful. Another beach with barely a soul on it, even though it's late March, it's nearly Easter. We're so lucky to have these beaches to ourselves. So behind me here you can see the back of the harbour. This is a lovely fishing village, and we'll go and have a little look at the boats. It's a lovely place to walk around, and it has a little isthmus then going out into the sea. Here we are at the harbour, and as you can see behind me there are a few boats, not many, little fishing boats, and over on this side is the convent, which, well, it used to be a convent and now is a retreat space and a conference centre. Let's walk down the harbour and have a little look. looked like the mist was clearing there for a while, but a thick band of cloud has come back down and the mountains are completely obscured again. So we might have to call it a day at that. But before we go, I'm going to drive around the headland and I want to show you Classiborn Castle, which is on the back side of the headland there, and it's a really iconic feature on the landscape of Sligo, and there's a little bit of history attached to it as well. Today, this really is the wild Atlantic. You can see the waves crashing behind me. I'm going to chance it and go out on the rocks just for a few minutes.
Law of truth and love.
Wow, there's a real energy to the sea today. As you can see, it's very powerful, and even though it's quite cold and wet, it's incredible to be out in the elements, even if for a short while, because to be honest, I am looking forward to going home and having a cup of tea.
And sadly, we could barely see Classiborn Castle through the mist as we came back around the other side of the headland. So I think we will have to keep that also for another day.
This is our last stop before we go home to get warm and dry. I just wanted to quickly show you Mermaid's Cove, which is on the drive home. And the tide is coming in here, so you can't see a lot of sand on this beach. But actually, below the rocks there is a nice sandy beach, and it's really beautiful in the summer to come here to this little cove. This is where we always came when I was a child. As a family, we used to come and we would camp out on the beach for the day, and it was one of our favourite places. And it was always quite quiet, which I think is probably why we came here. Not too many tourists. You could always find a big rock to shelter alongside. And it's a relatively safe beach to swim in. You can see Mullaghmore in the distance. It's shrouded in mist. It's actually almost invisible under the mist there. But that's where we were just a few moments ago, across on the other end of the beach in the harbour there. So for the time being, that's Mullaghmore and Mermaid's Cove. The Gleniff Horseshoe we will definitely go back to another day when the weather is a bit brighter. Thanks for joining me this week.